In every room, there's someone being watched, and someone observing in silence. The first wants to be understood. The second wants control. Which one are you? This is not about being good. It's about being untouchable. If I told you that your most instinctive reaction in a conflict is exactly what ensures your defeat, listen carefully, because you're about to question everything you thought you knew about power. There's a moment, a silent, fleeting instant, when someone confronts you, accuses you, or doubts your worth. And in that moment, most people do what they've been conditioned to do. They defend themselves. That's not what I meant. You misunderstood me. I swear I'm not like that. It sounds fair, even noble. But for Machiavelli, that's the exact moment you lose everything. Because the instant you defend yourself, you reveal that you needed to. And in the game of power, perception is reality. If they see you hesitate, they don't see a victim, they smell prey. That's the inexorable law Machiavelli understood. He who defends himself humiliates himself. He who doesn't forces the world to defend him. If you grasp this first trap, listen closely, because now you'll understand why. Defending yourself is almost never convincing. It drains your power, because when you justify your actions, you step into their territory. You accept their authority to define the truth. You're saying, they have the right to question me, and the moment you grant that right, they own the narrative. Even if you're right, you still look guilty, because only the weak rush to explain themselves. The powerful let silence do the work. They allow the accusation to linger in the air, because they know that, in the end, the goal is to turn the accusation into a mirror. They want the other person to question themselves, to appear emotional, reactive, unstable. Those who speak first usually lose control of the story. And Machiavelli understood this well. Whoever shapes the narrative dictates the outcome. Most people defend themselves because they crave to be understood. They believe that with enough explanations, they'll finally be proven right. But that belief doesn't come from strategy. It comes from emotional fragility. It's not about being clear. It's about being in control. Clarity belongs to therapy. Control belongs to power. And power doesn't rise from being understood. It rises from fear, respect, and the aura of invulnerability. So if someone calls you arrogant, cold, selfish, and you instantly respond, "No, that's not true. You don't get it," then you've already lost. Now you're reacting. Now you're showing that you care. Now you've handed them control. And in that moment, you surrender the most Machiavellian weapon you have, your mystery. Think of the most powerful people you've ever encountered. Not the loudest, but the ones who used silence like a blade. The ones who could make you question yourself with just a look. The ones who, when challenged, never flinched. Machiavelli would whisper, "He who explains submits, but he who stays silent compels others to invent their own story." And most of the time, they overestimate you. That's the essence of the game. If you don't react, they grow uneasy. They begin to question their own words. Slowly, their power fades, while yours expands, because you've done the one thing an emotional person can't stand. You made them speak. That's how you flip the game. You let their arrogance dissolve in the echo of their own weakness. Now, let's bring this to real life. Imagine this. You walk into a room. Someone drops a subtle insult. All eyes turn to you, waiting for your response. And that's when you strike, by doing nothing. No defense, no argument, just calm, complete stillness. In that instant, you're untouchable. Because everyone starts to wonder, why didn't they react? Do they know something we don't? Are they above this? You've just shattered the social balance, because now the focus isn't on the insult. It's on your silence. Delivered with composure, that silence speaks louder than any excuse. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that true power doesn't lie in what you say, but in what others imagine you could say, yet don't. But what happens when silence alone isn't enough? That's when the real strike begins. Sometimes ignoring the accusation won't do. You have to invert the situation. Someone calls you manipulative. You smile. You look past them and calmly say, if that's how you see it. Not with anger, but with cold indifference. And what happens? They hesitate because they expected resistance and instead met composure. Now their own weapon turns against them. Guilt begins to creep in. They start to wonder, did I go too far? Do I look insecure now? And just like that, you've won the exchange without even fighting. And so it appears you simply drained their energy and left it behind with them without moving a muscle. In the end, the silence becomes unbearable for those waiting for a reaction. Then, the roles invert. They thought themselves the accusers. Now they stand revealed as the ones craving attention. And you? You become something far more than merely innocent. You become untouchable. Machiavelli grasped something most never will. Words rarely clarify truth. They often cloud it. When someone attacks you, they want you to battle through the fog. They want to drown you in explanations, because the more you explain, the murkier everything becomes. So instead, let them fill the silence. They exaggerate. They repeat themselves. They grow frantic, and now the spotlight is on them. The crowd stops listening to the words and starts watching who remains composed and who trembles. That is social power. It does not come from being right, but from appearing impregnable. Notice how this plays out in your work and in your relationships. That's where the tactic gets most dangerous. In a business meeting, someone tries to humiliate a colleague. They want you to bite. Most people lean in, justify, argue, and betray nerves. Tension rises. The Machiavellian strategist, however, reclines. They wait, perhaps with a small, unreadable smile. And when they speak, it's not to defend, it's to redirect. Now show me your case. Suddenly, the aggressor must prove themselves. The atmosphere shifts. Suddenly, they feel exposed, under pressure. The silence of someone they trust becomes its own silent accusation. In relationships, this effect is even stronger. Their partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." Most people panic, and in doing so, confirm exactly what was said. But the Machiavellian response is different. They don't argue. They let the accusation hang in the air, and when they finally speak, it's calm, controlled. I don't see it that way. Short, steady, without a trace of defense. And instantly, the other person begins to doubt their own tone, because now you control the emotional rhythm, and whoever controls the rhythm controls the meaning. But there's an even colder tactic, and if you understand this, you've stepped into the elite. Don't just stay calm when accused. Disappear. Someone insults you? Don't reply. Don't react. Don't even acknowledge it. Let your absence become their mirror. Let them drown in the silence of your indifference. It eats at them, slowly. They realize you didn't even find them worthy of an answer. Then it begins. They spiral into their own thoughts. Their confidence breaks. Why? Because the average person craves emotional validation, even in conflict. Take that away, and they collapse. They push harder, trying to make you react. But with every attempt, they look smaller, more desperate, and all the while you remain perfectly still, untouched. That's your real advantage, not because you proved anything, but because they destroyed themselves trying to reach you. So next time someone calls you arrogant, simply think it's fascinating how confidence makes some people so uncomfortable. Someone says you're manipulative. Only those without real influence say things like that. And instead of denying the accusation, the strategist uses it, exposing the other's insecurity. Now they are the ones forced to defend themselves. This isn't revenge. It's a power move, pure psychological judo. Their own strength turned back against them. Machiavelli called it the turning of the sword. You don't meet the blade with a shield. You let the attacker fall upon his own weapon. The world teaches you to defend your reputation. But Machiavelli saw the trap. He knew that the moment you claim innocence, you silently confess guilt. The true strategist doesn't play that game. He stays too calm to be provoked, too elevated to be shaken. And with time, those who tried to drag him down began to look exactly as they are: unstable, reactive, jealous. Because the more you defend yourself, the more people assume there's something to defend. But the more you ignore them, the more dangerous you appear. And it's from that perception that power is born. Most people believe power comes from proving their worth, from being right, from convincing others they're not what they're accused of being. Machiavelli would only smirk at that illusion, because the moment you try to prove something, you've already accepted the other person's authority to judge you. And whoever gives that permission surrenders control. Picture the scene. Pay close attention to this final insight. You're in a group. Someone throws a sarcastic remark. You always act like you know everything. Most people stiffen. They force a laugh, or worse, start explaining themselves. But in that instant, they've already confirmed it. The comment landed. Everyone's eyes turn to the one who defends, and that alone makes the attack feel true. This is how the Machiavellian mind operates. They pause, remain silent for 2 long seconds, scan the room with a faint, knowing smile. And then, if they choose to speak, it's calm, sharp, almost mocking. You seem a little sensitive today. The attacker freezes. They look around, seeking validation, but the air has shifted. The room now turns against them, because your silence made one thing clear to everyone. You were never the one on trial. They were. In the digital world, this game unfolds even faster. Comments, posts, accusations, exposure. Online, silence is often mistaken for guilt, unless it radiates fearlessness. So if you're attacked publicly, don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Redefine the frame. Someone calls you toxic. You respond not with apology, but with power. People always call you dangerous when they can't control you. That's not a defense. That's a statement of dominance. Now they look bitter. You look unbothered. And suddenly, everyone watching begins to ask themselves, who's really in control here? This isn't damage control. It's narrative control. And there are 3 techniques you can use instead of defending yourself. First, distraction. Shift the focus. Make them chase shadows. Second, precision. Respond with short, cutting truths. They say you're self-centered. You say, confidence makes insecure people uneasy. They say you're dishonest. You say, I don't owe you authenticity. They say, you think you're better than everyone else. You say, no, I just think differently. These are not defenses. They're declarations of status. You can't touch me. And that is exactly the point. The Machiavellian never pleads to be seen as good. He dares others to see him as dangerous and advances with even greater confidence. When you refuse to defend yourself, something fascinating happens. Your enemies begin to unravel. They expect resistance, a battle, and instead they face silence. So they grow louder, more desperate, more exposed. And the more they try to destroy you, the higher you rise. Why? Because you've led them to engineer their own downfall. That is the true victory of the Machiavellian. You don't crush your enemies. You let their obsession with you consume them. You think being misunderstood is risky, but being predictable is far worse. The misunderstood carry an aura of mystery. The predictable are easy to control. Those who keep explaining themselves are seen as desperate. Those who remain silent become feared. Machiavelli knew the truth. It's better to be feared than loved, but even greater to be unreadable. Let's destroy one final illusion. You don't need a good reputation to win. You need a solid one. A man with a good reputation is expected to be agreeable. A man with a solid reputation might not be liked, but no one dares to test him. That's what happens when you stop defending yourself. Your reputation stops depending on what people believe and starts depending on what they suspect you might do. That's how you reverse the power dynamic. You no longer chase validation. You create an atmosphere of quiet dominance, because the ultimate power isn't just silence, it's presence. A presence so composed, so self-assured, that accusations die before they're even spoken. This isn't coldness, it's mastery, the discipline of being untouchable. And once you grow comfortable with not defending, not explaining, not needing to be understood, you cross a threshold where your very existence is the defense. And it's precisely there that power stops being an act and becomes your nature. Think of the few who never justify themselves. They don't seek approval, they radiate authority. That is the Machiavellian state of power. They don't post angry words, they don't argue, and yet they command more respect than anyone else. Why? Because silence in the face of accusation creates a myth. It leaves room for interpretation, and the human mind fills that void with power. People start to believe you're dangerous, that you know something they don't, and that assumption becomes your greatest weapon. Machiavelli never sought to be good. He sought to be in control. Here lies the ultimate paradox, the secret of social power. The more you justify yourself, the weaker you appear. But when you remain calm, unshaken, people begin to defend you for you. They whisper, "That was unnecessary. He didn't deserve that." And suddenly their voices become your shield. What better defense than to have others protect your name without you ever asking? That is Machiavellian power. Let the crowd fight your battles while you remain above the noise. Now you're not just respected, you're elevated. But this level of composure isn't built overnight. It's constructed brick by brick, like a fortress. So start here. Never respond to provocation. Never feed the fire. Use short, final words. Understood. Time will tell. Then close the door. Observe how your stillness becomes your armor, how your calm presence exposes their chaos, because the more motionless you remain while others lose control, the more your power expands. When they no longer know how to provoke you, they begin to fear you. You become unreadable, a mirror reflecting their instability. Machiavelli would say, "The most dangerous man is not the one who strikes first, but the one who never has to, and one day the attacks will stop. Not because you fought back, but because they already know they'll lose before they even begin." Your silence says it all. Your presence declares it. I am not on the defensive. I let others destroy themselves. There's a difference between strength and immunity. Strength reacts. Immunity doesn't even register the blow. That is the Machiavellian ideal. You don't win a fight, you end it before it even begins, simply by not needing to react. When you stop defending yourself, people stop seeing you as someone to be judged. You've escaped public scrutiny, and now the only judgment that matters is your own. From that moment, you no longer live defensively. You live by definition. You define your image, your tone of voice, your silence, and people sense it. The certainty in your eyes, the calm in your posture, the danger in your silence. You're no longer resisting, you're in control. And then the atmosphere shifts. The crowd falls silent. Your enemies grow quiet. Your name carries weight, not because you fought for it, but because you never explained it. If you've come this far, if every word resonated, then you're not just a spectator, you're a survivor of the endless noise that teaches us to beg for recognition. You've stared into the abyss of others' opinions and remained unmoved. I see you. I recognize that silence within you, because the seed has already been planted, the seed of peace. The decision to stop justifying yourself is already growing in the depths of your mind, and it will not die. That's why I invite you to a symbolic act, not for the algorithm, not for the numbers, but as a seal of understanding. If this message resonates with you, comment below. My silence is my answer. This is not a comment, it's a declaration, a quiet vow that you no longer fight battles that do not serve you. And when you subscribe to this channel, you're not just clicking a button, you're stepping into a fortress, a place where we carry the weight of our own energy, instead of seeking shelter in the approval of others. Here, there are no polished mirrors reflecting what you want to see, only fragments of unfiltered truth, the kind most fear, but the only kind that can truly set you free. Every video you find here is not entertainment, it's a key, and every key unlocks a door to a space that already exists within you. Go now and let your silence be your definition, not your defense.